Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through a hearty 12-game slate tonight. Lots of action in the NBA. We're back to these big Wednesday slates. A lot of injury news to discuss. With me to it, as always, Mike Gallagher. How are you, Mike?
Doing good. Yeah, no Jaden Hardy or Will Hardy coaching on the slate today, but definitely a Hardy slate of basketball.
Love the wordplay, especially NBA-related wordplay. It is my favorite. Thank you for kicking off the show that way. Let's get into the injury stuff. Let's start with the questionable tags. Big questionable tag to start with a big man in Philadelphia, Joel Embiid, listed as questionable. What are your read here on Embiid and the Sixers?
Yeah, we've seen this movie before. Different injury getting added midday, and got a real late update on a back injury when he was out there, and he looked fine. You could say he looked great, 42 points in a good matchup against the Pelicans, who've been really bleeding interior scoring lately. One of the worst at rim efficiencies in the league. For opponents to put numbers up on them. So yeah, this foot thing is not new. He's had it. It's not. It's he didn't. I mentioned back last time, but he's had a foot injury before. He was playing through it. Called about a month and a half ago. So this is an injury that popped up. I don't think they're on a back to back, so that helps. But yeah, we're probably gonna be game time. If he's out there, I think you kind of trust him and throw him out. And so matchup. Miles Turner, pretty good post defender overall. So we talked about attacking the Pacers, but it's more of guys who kind of rim run and can really dominate with passes to the near the basket. So not a great matchup. We'll see if this foot thing pops up, but definitely something we'll be watching. And this is a little bit more concerning to me than the back injury we saw on Monday.
And if he were unable to go, how do you expect his void to be filled offensively and from a minutes perspective?
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's Paul Reed. I think you'd rather have a little bit more size and agility with Miles Turner and the
Yep.
floor spacing. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go that way, or they maybe go Harrell early. But it would definitely be more of a Paul Reed spot and a good matchup, like I mentioned. Paul Reed is a kind of type of player who could dominate. With hitting the offensive glass. Harrell too. Harrell's a pretty good offensive rebounder. So those guys just relative to their skill set, is actually a better matchup than it is for Embiid. Obviously, Embiid's going to put up huge numbers regardless, but just relative to how they could take advantage of Miles kind of floating and moving around, I think could make it a sneaky good spot for them.
And Tyrese Maxey off the bench for the
Mhm.
foreseeable future is the expectation here. What do you think the minutes eventually get up to kind of off the bench? Do you think it's this like 25-27 roll, or do you think
Mhm.
it could be like a 30-minute roll off the bench?
Yeah, I think they're kind of comfortable with that upper 20s, maybe hit 30 if things kind of go their way. They're certainly playing hard in a ton of minutes. A matchup where they're going to need D'Anthony Melton against Tyrese Halliburton. So, yeah, I would say probably 28, 29 would probably be the expectation for this spot.
Okay, let's get to Charlotte, where Gordon Hayward is listed as doubtful. Kelly Oubre is out. That leaves them really thin, but there is potentially some reinforcement on the way as Cody Martin, who hasn't played since the very first game of the season, is listed questionable. Do you have any read on Cody Martin's availability tonight? And if so, how things would shake out in Charlotte, a team that's been playing really tight rotations. If you caught our social video that we pushed out to promote this before, this was a situation that I was talking about, in that everybody's minutes, even with blowouts, the starters' minutes have been more elevated of late. And you take out Hayward, who's been averaging like 32 during this 5-game stretch of late, and you don't have a lot of guys to fill it. So, do you think we get Cody Martin back? And if so, would you expect there to be a minutes cap? What are you looking at for Charlotte tonight?
Yeah, so just timeline this one. Got hurt, mentioned early in the season, had surgery on November 11th. 6 weeks was his prognosis. He's past that. We're talking about almost 2 months here. He's been ramping up, went through practice yesterday. So all signs are that he's going to be back. Should note the Dennis Smith Jr. questionable tag after questionable tag after questionable tag, and
Yep.
not playing for most of those gives me a little bit of pause. But besides that fact, there's a lot of things trending in the right direction. And as you mentioned, not only just Gordon Hayward going down, but matchup wise, like what a spot for him. Like you need on ball defense in the worst way against John Morant. He would if he's cleared to go, I would expect to have a minutes cap. I mentioned, arthroscopic knee surgery. That's generally a ramp up thing. So I think that they bring him off the bench and they start Jalen McDaniels to kind of cover the 48 on ball defense that way. McDaniels picking up the John Morant matchup, which actually makes this matchup a little bit more difficult for Morant against one of the worst pick and roll defenses in the NBA. So matchup gets a little bit harder. I still think Chalk can pop off here, but yeah, definitely keep an eye on Cody. But yeah, besides the questionable tags and the forever doubtful tags that the Hornets use, that's the only evidence working against Cody here. So I would lean he's got a pretty good chance to play.
If he was unable to go, what does the rotation look like? Obviously, we know Jalen McDaniels would slide into the starting lineup over Gordon Hayward there. The bench, Dennis Smith Jr. would be the primary backup guard. We know Mark Williams has probably earned that primary backup center role. We should also note that these injuries have allowed Mason Plumlee's minutes to increase as well, because they're not able to play PJ Washington at the center spot because they're just kind of out of wings. So they're playing a true 48 center minutes now. Is JT Thor that guy? And is it an 8-man rotation? Do they extend out to James Bouknight, Bryce McGowan's, Kai Jones? Like, what do you think happens with the back of the rotation here for Charlotte?
I think Dennis Smith Jr. could get a little bit more overlap. We saw him overlap a little bit in the last couple games here, so I think he would benefit a little bit. They would need the size, right? So I think JT Thor would make sense. Maybe even Kai Jones in the spot, but Thor looks to be a little bit ahead. But yeah, the headline is just there could be really elevated minutes on PJ Washington. You mentioned Plumlee, LaMelo. If he can avoid foul trouble, he shouldn't. He would probably get the Desmond Bane matchup on the other end, which could be problematic for him at times. And Rozier also, he benefits like huge here because he is going to almost certainly be ducking the Ja Morant matchup now. And the matchup's not bad. Memphis's weak spot is kind of giving up jumpers. So I think Rozier could get a lot of minutes, and he won't be as affected by this Memphis defense, which just takes away the paint and short mid-range stuff like better than anybody. So I think Rozier sneaky benefits, especially if Cody can't play.
All right, let's move over to the Memphis side of things, where Tyus Jones, Zaire Williams, Santi Aldama, all questionable. There's no Brandon Clark. There's no Jake LaRavia. So walk us through the Q tags and what you think the likelihood of guys playing tonight is.
Yeah, Tyus Jones, midday illness tag. We've been mentioning. It just feels like an automatic out at this point. Everyone gets those midday illness tags. They just don't play. So, other than that, Zaire's been playing with this knee thing. I think it's more of a maintenance thing. Definitely could miss. Santi Aldama also been playing through this. Was a pretty bad tweak, so he could have a chance to return. This is an upgrade with the Q tag. They would need him. They don't have Jake LaRavia. He's in the G League, so there could be some elevated minutes. Steven Adams just on a tear on the glass, putting up 20 rebound games. We love to attack the Charlotte centers. Not having Brandon Clark, especially if no Santi Aldama is in there, he could really get a lot of minutes here. Contrast minutes could help. We'll get Desmond Bane back after he rested in the last game in a back-to-back. Xavier Tillman got talked up by Taylor Jenkins after the game, as did Kennedy Chandler. He really picked up wing minutes. They've used him a lot for on-ball defense in kind of challenging spots. So I think if Tyus doesn't play, I would expect Chandler to pick up all the non-job minutes. Certainly there could be more ball handling going to Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks. Chandler's not a huge ball handle guy like Tyus Jones is. Tyus Jones very much kind of dominates the ball. Even with Bane, he's been kind of pushing Bane's ball handling down a little bit. But yeah, so not a great read on all those Q tags, but it's very noteworthy if they are going to be thin. We'll see if Jenkins does shy away from his, strict 10-man because he would be kind of in a bit of a pickle, especially if they don't call LaRavia up.
Yeah, it seems like Tillman is the backup center tonight to Steven Adams. If Tyus Jones were out, Kennedy Chandler would fill that role. And then, the backup 4 spot would go to David Roddy instead of, Brandon Clark or Santi Aldama. If Aldama can't fill that role, if Aldama can fill that role, then Roddy probably is like on the outskirts of the rotation, unless Zaire Williams misses. Zaire Williams being the backup 3. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts here. But we'll see how it all impacts. Obviously, a great matchup with Charlotte, and seeing 35 minutes from Steven Adams last game against Sacramento, I think is really encouraging. I will note that I think Steven Adams' minutes get extended a little bit more against the type of player. Like his run of late has been against some bulkier, big center options, Valanciunas, and Sabonis, Ayton. I think those are guys that his minutes are going to be elevated against naturally. Plumlee, I don't know if he totally fits that description, but with the lack of depth here, I think it's probably going to be.
I don't think he does, but he could just totally smash per minute, even if he doesn't have Brandon Clark's a much bigger threat than Xavier Tillman is, despite the comments from Jenkins.
Exactly. All right, let's move to Cleveland, where Darius Garland remains doubtful. Dean Wade remains out. Evan Mobley remains questionable. The starters' jerseys, they took a hit last game. The record took a little bit of a hit as Evan Mobley went from questionable to out, despite having the starters' jersey on at shoot around. What's the read today for Cleveland?
Yeah, rough start for 2023 with the starters jerseys. After going undefeated in 2022, they are fully defeated in 2023. Yeah, starters jersey again. Did some extra work. One of their beat writers had shot a video of him and Ricky Rubio being the last guys at practice. He had a starters jersey on. We thought he was going to play last time, and we're wrong. Sounds like he's going to be back, so would expect him to start over Kevin Love. Expecting Darius Garland to miss. Doubtful tag. Don't have any starters jerseys information to confirm there, but certainly could expect Karis LeVert to play a bunch. And obviously, Donovan Mitchell just completely popping off. 71 minutes. Ball handling numbers have really spiked as well in the last couple games. Karis LeVert usage has been pretty good. Minutes have been outstanding. In a good matchup. This Suns defense is terrible. They are like bottom 3 in so many defensive categories, including offensive rebounding stuff, transition, cutting. Like every easy basket stuff is just going against the Suns right now, and that was their bread and butter as a defense. So this is a spot to attack. I'm not worried about Mikal Bridges anymore. It's just people are popping off on him. I think Karis LeVert could sneaky benefit. As you know, they'll probably put Chris Paul on Lamar Stevens. So if it's Landry Shamet or something like that, I think Karis could really, really benefit if Mikal is on his A game. And yeah, I would expect Mobley to pick up most of those minutes. We've seen at times when they bring guys back from ankle injuries or something that's not too severe, they go crazy. You'll remember Jared Allen, had a 40 or 20-minute half. So a really good spot. He's going to have I think they start small and put Torrey Craig on him. They don't go back to that Jock Landale stuff that we saw for a little bit. So it's if Mobley's out there and we get like really early green light stuff, I don't mind throwing him out there.
Yeah, the other thing I'll note that if
we lose. I think I lost you. I don't know who lost you.
Does chat have me? Oh boy, chat. Let us know if you can. If you can hear one of us, it would be helpful for us to know who it is that you can hear. Okay, interesting, weird. I don't know why I keep getting these like random cutouts. Okay, yeah. So Kevin Love has been the beneficiary when Evan Mobley has been out. Would also note that really of importance here is the fact that how tight they've played. This is basically an 8-man rotation last game, 7 spillover minutes from Robin Lopez. So it's a spot that if Mobley is unable to go once again, just really tight condensed minutes, a lot of value on the Cleveland side. Obviously the price tags are rising to accommodate it, but it's been a DFS bonanza for the Cavaliers of late. Okay,
one thing to add to really quick is, you don't have to worry about strong wing scoring in the spot. So even though Lamar Stevens could start, this is kind of sneaky, a Jetty Osman spot that I could see his minutes kind of coming in and just doing the Sadiq Bey substitution or the Russell Westbrook substitution, subs in and just runs until the end of half. So I think Jetty's kind of sneaky.
All right, let's look at New York. Derrick Rose and Obi Toppin are on the injury report today. I believe Toppin is doubtful. Did he get upgraded to questionable?
Upgraded, yeah.
Upgraded to questionable. Okay, that's intriguing. Derrick Rose with the questionable tag. Obviously, we've seen the Knicks playing without RJ Barrett. They got Jalen Brunson back last game. They've been playing these really tight rotations. I was sitting there. We had a quickly under last game, and they're up by 30 in the fourth quarter. And quickly still in there with 2 minutes left. And I'm just like, come on, Tibbs, like just do the right thing finally. But point being, they have been playing really tight of late, and they have not shown much willingness to dip into that bench rotation. If Obi Toppin's back, I'd imagine that potentially changes things. But what are your thoughts on the Knicks and Obi Toppin's availability and Derrick Rose's availability tonight?
Yeah, originally listed as doubtful, and then got upgraded today with the questionable tag. So timeline-wise, he was going to be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks back on December 8th. So he has cleared that timeline. This fits the bill. I think he could definitely be back. Non-displaced fractures usually require a ramp-up, so I would expect him just to get the non-Randalls, kicking out Jericho Sims from the rotation. Pretty straightforward there. Although they like him a lot. Tibbs really talked about the defensive impact from Hartenstein and Sims together. Talked about Sims having quick feed, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of a shuffle there, but I would still lean that Sims kind of goes away. Just interesting to hear that Tibbs loves that Hartenstein Sims combo so much. Doesn't affect you. Maybe it takes a teensy bit of upside off Julius
So
Randle.
that's
We've seen
that's
just
what I was going to
yeah.
ask, because Julius's explosion, which in over the last like 10 games, he's been one of the best players in the NBA, despite Knicks fans' grievances with Julius Randle all year. He really like started to ascend once Obi Toppin went down, and the minutes were
hmm
more elevated more consistently. So I guess, I don't know if that's an immediate threat with how well Julius is playing now, but certainly having a body that could absorb more minutes than Sims. Because as much as Tibbs likes Sims and Hartenstein together, those lineups just can't score. They can't score effectively. They can hold leads, because they'll be very good defensive units, and Tibbs loves defense, but they can't score.
hmm
So you can't leave them out there for a long period of time without being vulnerable to runs from the opponent. What are your thoughts on long term, Randall, if the minutes start coming back down closer, because they've been like 36 plus in these
hmm
samples instead of like 33, 34 earlier in the season?
Yeah, I think without RG Barrett, I think they really need to lead into those guys for offense. Everything else is,
Yeah.
especially with there's just not a lot of scoring punch off the bench. Even I don't think Toppin really changes anything there. So, he won't have. I don't think he has the superior, 43-minute kind of ceiling that we've been seeing at times. But I think he could consistently touch upper 30s. And my God, the matchup is the best. Spurs' worst defense in the NBA. He's going to probably see Jeremy Sohan on him on the other end. I could see him being really aggressive against a rookie and their defense. And yeah, his style of scoring inside a little bit, adding his jump shooting. Really good spot. It's a better matchup for me for Brunson. I think Brunson could really take over. We've been just jamming guards against the Spurs. I expect the Knicks to score quite a bit. Their offense has been pretty good over the last spot, and their defense has been better. So yeah, I think Quickly could also pop off. His minutes have been great, but yeah, really good spot to attack with the Knicks.
If Derrick Rose is available, do you think he's in the rotation or not?
I don't.
Okay. That's kind of my lean as well.
Yeah.
I think Fournier has done enough that Fournier
Yeah.
has that role now.
And I don't think he's playing. I mean, he got injured. This isn't a fake
Yeah.
tag. Thibodeau said he tweaked
Yeah.
it. I don't think he's playing anyways. And I mean, why would they play him if he's even if he hurts his game? He hurts himself one game ago. Like, it's Derrick Rose. Don't even play him.
Yeah. On the other side, Devin Vassell is questionable with the knee soreness. Again, any read on Vassell's availability tonight?
Yeah, we've seen this thing pop up really throughout the season. So I think there's a decent chance he misses. We've seen him get listed with this Q tag. And somewhat interestingly, there's like a little bit of a cadence on timing on when the Spurs release injuries. They're very quick to roll guys in or out. So I think, if it's kind of a no news is bad news situation on Vassell, I think the longer we don't get an injury designation and improvement means it's more likely he's going to sit. If he is going to sit, I think they probably go to Romeo Langford. They need the on-ball defense. He would probably pick up the Brunson matchup, which makes it a little bit worse for Brunson. Still certainly a spot I would attack. But yeah, Romeo's been pretty good when called upon, and getting a little bit of minute ceiling would also help Malachi Branham for more offense. Obviously, Keldon Johnson would be in a monster spot. The Knicks give up more points off jumpers than any team in the NBA. Keldon Johnson leads the NBA in catch and on spot up plays this year. So matchup wise and workload wise, it would be really a good spot for Keldon.
All right, let's move to the Bulls. Derrick Jones Jr. and Dalen Terry both listed questionable. Andre Drummond listed probable here. These are all back end of the rotation pieces. We've talked about how Derrick Jones Jr. has an impact that kind of flows through to different roster combinations that the Bulls are willing to use. He's been, listed questionable and they're playing 22 minutes against Cleveland last game, and kind of the first game that he's been able to get back on the floor. So what are your thoughts on their availability tonight and how it would potentially impact things? You saw Andre Drummond's minutes cut down, Goran Dragic and Kobe White's minutes cut down with Derrick Jones Jr. back in the rotation last game.
Yeah, so we saw Javonte miss the last game, which I kind of mentioned that can make it more likely that Alex Caruso comes off the bench. That's what happened. So I think Derrick Jones, by kind of the same thought, I think that would make it a little bit more likely that Caruso comes off the bench, which if you're wanting to play Kyrie Irving, that would be good news. I think Kyrie could really take it to Ayo Dosunmu in the spot. But yeah, so it's kind of weird that these front court guys could affect, Ayo and Caruso. So something to watch there. Don't have to read it's an eye injury. Those are tough to read. So yeah, we should see Drummond back and, most of those
Would
minutes.
also note this is maybe a game environment that it's less likely for Andre Drummond to get the full backup center minutes,
Hmm.
just because of the way the Nets play with kind of their smaller center situations, whether it's Claxton or running out KD or Ben Simmons at the center spot. So Derrick Jones Jr. being available would help secure the potential of Andre Drummond's minutes being cut down, meaning that if Derrick Jones Jr. is there, you could see him take some center minutes and kind of fill in that way. And obviously, they're just deeper with these guys, and it makes them the secondary guys a little bit harder to play. Even though I would assume he's kind of held his role a little bit of late. Okay, keeping it moving through the questionable tags. Naz Reid and Torian Prince is questionable. Bryn Forbes is added to the questionable tags list for Minnesota of late. Torian Prince is kind of an important one, I think, just because we've seen it's been an interesting kind of roller coaster with Kyle Anderson of late. He was great last game against Denver in the absence of Naz Reid and D'Angelo Russell. And I think both of those are kind of important. Naz Reid impacted their front court depth, and then D'Angelo Russell impacts some of their playmaking stuff, like which Kyle Anderson adds value to. But previously, before this, when they had guys healthy and Kyle Anderson was the guy kind of coming back, they had talked about like the back spasms acting up and wanting to try to like monitor his minutes a little bit more, it seems like. So I think Torian Prince, if he is back and available, I think puts a potential cap or ceiling on the Kyle Anderson stuff. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and your thoughts on the likelihood of Torian and Naz Reid playing tonight.
Yeah, Prince probably got a good chance to be back. He's been kind of moving around for over a month now, so he's been able to ramp up over a long period of time. Started doing on-court work on the 28th, so really all signs are there that he'll be back today. And yeah, really gives this team shooting, which they need, and another wing defender. So if McDaniels gets into foul trouble, that could help, and that could take a teensy bit of ceiling off McDaniels, just a little bit. I think he's kind of self-capped whether he fouls or not, but just something to note. They like Anderson, and they ran a lot of offense through him in the last game against the Nuggets, and they even put him on Jokic. I mean, they asked the world out of him, and he really came up. I think that Matt Ryan would just go away. I think that's kind of the move here. I don't think it would really be anything else that would happen.
So you don't think there you don't like. So my concern from Anderson is because he's a guy that is a pretty good point per minute producer, despite having like a relatively modest usage rate, because he does all these little things. He's got a good steal block rate. He facilitates offense. My concern would be that if Kyle Anderson, who can project well and has a solid value, if you give him like 28, 29 minutes, my concern would be, hey, maybe instead of the 28 to 30, 31, he's stuck at like 24 to 26 because of Torian Prince's availability. It sounds like you don't have that concern.
No, not really.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Then if Nas is out, we'll see the Luka Garza Nate Knight duo. It seemed to be working pretty well for them, but it wouldn't be as much of it because they would have Prince, so they wouldn't need to go that way. And you want a little bit more versatility defensively against all these shooting guards and the guards that shoot, I should say. Just man, Dame has crushed McDaniels, man. He's put it on him twice, so. Sneaky good spot for Dame despite drawing the Jalen McDaniels matchup. I think Anthony Simons could benefit. Ant Bowl 2 or Ant Bowl 3. We got the two ants facing each other, probably guarding each other quite a bit. More obviously. Actually, I should note too. This is interesting because I'm not going to be on DFS show. So we talked a lot about this. Like, why don't you put Jeremy Grant on Ant Edwards? And they didn't do it again. So I think that's something to watch. They like to put Josh Hart on him. We'll see if maybe that changes. But yeah, pretty fun game, man. This is the Wolves give up more points off catch and shoot jumpers than anybody, and we know that Ant and Dame love to bomb them.
And Jeremy Grant, who's shooting like 45% from three this year as well. All right, Chris Duarte questionable for the Pacers. Any read on Duarte's availability there?
He got hurt. Carlisle kind of downplayed it though, so I think he's got a decent chance to play. Obviously, this guy is hurt quite a bit. I would probably lean out on the situation, not strongly though. That would give a little bit more minute ceiling to their starters. Aaron Nesmith's been playing well. Obviously, Nemhard's been pretty good. McConnell getting a little bit of overlap and was really impactful in this game against the Raptors. Just making plays and that just classic TJ McConnell game. So he would benefit a little bit. Benny Mathurin would have a little bit more minute ceiling. They've got pretty good amount of depth there. Would also help Aaron Neesmith a teensy bit. Um, he would get probably the Tobias matchup, Nemhard getting the Harden matchup.
All right, back to the Blazers. Gary Payton had an ankle tweak. Nurk is listed as probable with this illness. So, good upgrade on Nurk, who has been questionable out, questionable in, then somewhat limited minutes, and now probable. So that sounds better. Any restrictions on Nurk that we should be afraid of? I mean, that 14-minute game last game was a combination of blowout and different scenarios, and Eubanks just playing really, really well. What are your thoughts on Nurk, if there's any limitations there, and then if we see Gary Payton the second tonight?
Yeah, he hurt his ankle. I don't think they would put him out there, given how much time he was off and how long it took. I mean, everyone in the world was wondering what took so long for him to return. Yeah, I think Nurk should be fine. He's been listed with this illness thing, probable tag. The Blazers love to put probable tags on that guy. Fan calls him Miami North with all the alerts he has to put out that have no purpose. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about Nurk playing pretty good minutes. Not a great matchup against Gobert overall, but yeah, I think, and Payton's interesting, right? Because, I mean, I mentioned this multiple times that, Billups doesn't want to play these guys. He doesn't want to play Shaedon Sharpe big minutes, doesn't really want to play Keon Johnson big minutes. So if he doesn't have Gary Payton to use, then there could be, we saw that, the game against the Warriors, they ran the guys into the ground. This is such a good matchup for how they like to score with their jump shooting and the Wolves being so vulnerable there. So, yeah, this could be a really good spot to attack with those guards.
All right. LeBron listed as questionable once again on the injury report. A lot of questionable tags for LeBron this year. Haven't seen a lot of missed games from LeBron. Russell Westbrook back after the foot soreness issue, and then Lonnie Walker with a real questionable tag. He missed last game. What are your thoughts on the Lakers tonight and who we see in their matchup against the Heat?
Yeah, it should be LeBron time. He's seen this Q tag before, not a back to back. Back to back would obviously make me change my take here, but I feel pretty good about this. Westbrook got shut down according to Darvin Ham after the game, so should be back. I don't really want to play him because this isn't a new injury for him. He's had this foot soreness thing that's cost him time. The Lakers didn't list him when this thing first popped up, and they popped him with a late out tag. So just keep an eye out on that. LeBron time, man. LeBron against the zone. He is among players with 25 possessions against the zone. He is the best player per possession at scoring against the zone. So we've seen the usage creep up. He's like top 6 in usage in the last 5 games. Minutes have been outrageous. Rebounding rates up. He is just going full on prime LeBron. And I think he could take advantage of this matchup against the Heat. And it should mention, he had a pretty good, okay game against them in a back-to-back. So
yeah.
I think it's a pretty good spot for LeBron.
Yeah, I've been getting a little bit more nostalgic of late, of just like it's such a pleasure to, like, in my personal experience of LeBron as a fan of LeBron has been a roller coaster, because back when I used to care about the Chicago Bulls, LeBron was the biggest impediment to a team that I loved, with Joakim Noah and Luol Deng and Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler really advancing. And I was devastated when LeBron and Bosh and Wade all chose Miami in an offseason that looked like the Bulls had another potential, like if they land one of those guys, maybe they're winning titles. And so I had a lot of anger in my heart for LeBron James, and that subsided over the years. And just like, what a joy to watch this guy still do this at this age. It's just really, really remarkable. And who knows how much longer we're going to keep having the benefit of doing it, but it's really something.
Should mention
Miami
really
side,
quick too, Reeves tweaked his ankle and there was no concern, not listed. So keep an eye on that though. The Lakers have been known to turn some tricky tags, but just want to note he did get dinged up in the last game. Not before catching over though.
Miami side, Duncan Robinson got ruled out. Caleb Martin is listed as probable here, and then a couple bigs, Dwayne Dedmon and Udonis Haslem, are questionable. I think there's a legitimate question over whether, when Dedmon returns, if he's actually the backup center with how well Orlando Robinson has played. I think he probably still is. I think Dwayne Dedmon's still a pretty good player and a pretty impactful defensive player when he's healthy. But I think they might take as much time as they need getting Dwayne Dedmon healthy because of how well Orlando Robinson has played in this backup role. What are your thoughts on the Heat tonight?
Yeah, so in typical Miami Heat fashion, they originally list Duncan Robinson as questionable, downgrade him to out, and then half an hour later, since we popped on the air, he's having surgery. So he's out. He's out. He's out 4 weeks now. Not surprising there. Yeah. Besides that, in the Deadman thing, I think that's 100% right. I think Robinson's done more than enough to earn this role, but the bigger story has been the Hero Bam pick and roll game has been the foundation of their offense by a lot, and it's really pushed down Jimmy Butler, kind of in a significant way. I think they're kind of managing him a little bit. We've seen Lowry's minutes get cut back. He's almost been, almost like a secondary ball handler. It's just been so much Bam, so much Hero, and good matchup for Bam. The Lakers are really bad interior wise. They're the worst team at giving up handoff plays. So that's fits him play type wise. We saw him have a good game against them last week. So pretty good spot for Bam. Okay spot for Hero. Yeah, tough to buy into Jimmy. I mean, I'm kind of buying the coach speak from Spoelstra saying that they do want to lean more into this Hero Bam pick and roll stuff, and it's kind of showing here.
All right, let's get into the doubtful and outs. No Zion Williamson for the Pels, no Brandon Ingram. So they do have Herb Jones back. They had played a little bit with this group without Herb Jones, and you'd seen like really big minutes from Trey Murphy and Najee Marshall and those guys. What do you expect from the Pels as we go a few weeks? It looks like without Zion Williamson here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a lot of the other beat reporters checking schedules and seeing when the Pelicans were on there and tweeting it out. John, who does projections tonight, that's our little running joke. But I think they go to Najee Marshall here. We've seen Najee Marshall pick up a lot of those minutes when Herb was out. He's been very good. Certainly a matchup to do it as well. Don't have a lot of size there. But obviously the headline is, CJ McCollum gets put into the dream spot against Houston. We've seen him go off against Anthony Melton. Now he gets A+ matchup here against probably Kevin Porter Jr. guarding him. The Rockets are terrible. I believe they gave up the most points per game on unguard. It's one of the jumper stats. So we know he's going to be able to light them up. Usage should be really, really strong. We've seen big minutes there. So expect a big role from him. Trey Murphy also could benefit a little bit. Najee and Herb's minutes come up a little bit because they're not competing with each other as much anymore. Valanciunas. There was that comment when Zion was out for protocol saying that they kept it a secret how they're going to use him. And good matchup against Şengün. So, yeah, it's a really big opportunity for the Pelicans right out of the gate here against a defense we'd love to attack.
Magic list of suspensions and injuries still deep today. They're on the front end of a back-to-back as well. No Bull due to health and safety protocols, I believe it is. Admiral Schofield, Jalen Suggs is getting closer, but it sounds like not tonight, maybe tomorrow on Jalen Suggs. Mo Wagner, little bookkeeping note, record-keeping note. He did not have a suspension credited for last game because he was ill and he wouldn't have played the game. So his suspension will actually start tonight. So he's suspended both of these back-to-back games. So no Mo Wagner, no Franz Wagner. He'll be serving his part of the suspension tonight. So the Magic have 9 players available. They have 5 of those 9 players that they have available are guards. So it seems like we'll have to see Wendell Carter Jr.'s minutes elevate. Him and Mo Bamba are the 2 bigs. And we know they're comfortable playing those 2 guys together because they started them, last year together. So I'd imagine there will even be some overlap from those 2. And the other note that I have is in that game, 8-man rotation, really important things to take away here for me is minutes were really spread. Obviously, the game was never super competitive, so it's hard to say if that was their intention or that was the game leading that way. But they let Banchero and Franz go. Those guys played 38 minutes. They played deep into the blowout. Markelle, not so much. Terrence Ross, who was awful in his 24 minutes, not so much. So they have 9 tonight. It's not quite as dire as what it was before, but I'm wondering if it's another situation where a lot of the guys are kept, into the mid-20s. With the exception of a few guys, Paolo being one of them that could extend up into the upper 30s. And then most other guys kept like upper 20s, between mid 20s and low 30s, let's say, as in more of a spread approach. What are your thoughts on the Magic tonight?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with Wendell Carter Jr. They've been off since Friday. He's been ramping up going through practice. We saw him hit 24 minutes in the last game. So I think he's got a shot maybe to touch 30 and one of the best matchups. OKC's defense has been very good. They've been like top 5 in half-court defense in the last month, but they give it up on the O glass, give it up to post-up centers. They're one of the worst teams at post-up defense. So could be a really, really strong Wendell Carter Jr. spot and presumably in the starting lineup. I agree with you with a little bit of overlap And then you're taking Franz Wagner's ball handling and size off the table. So that could add way more upside to Paolo Banchero. Great matchup for him. He probably will see a little bit of Dort, but I think his size could be enough to beat Dort. And we'll see if we'll talk about OKC in a second. But
well, the thing that I'm interested in seeing is, yeah, they're taking off Franz's ball handling, but it might lead to more Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony overlap, which would essentially be the same type of thing in terms of having multiple ball handlers. They don't run as much initiation through Cole, but a lot of the stuff that they end up with has him as like the secondary playmaker, and he's pretty ball dominant. So that's my one thing, is just like, how are these rotations going to shake out? Because they have, last game they had so many low usage guys available. This game they have a little bit more of the higher usage guys, or guys that can maintain higher usage available. Franz being the one higher usage guy that they're taking out. So that's the one thing that I'm kind of interested in seeing. And obviously Paolo has struggled to generate big ceilings this year, but it is an opportunity for huge minutes. They don't have a 4 really. He's really their only 4 if you look at the roster and like who's available, unless you talk about like Caleb Houston, who can't take a ton of minutes anyway.
Yeah, and should add, based on the underdog tweet with who's available, we're both expecting the same starters of Terrence Ross and Garrett Harris picking up the wing minutes. Obviously, Fultz, Paolo, and Wendell Carter Jr., the other 3.
Yeah, and then the backups there would be Bamba, RJ Hampton, Cole Anthony, and Caleb Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's move to Milwaukee. This Milwaukee injury report. No Drew Holiday, no Joe Ingles, no George Hill, no Chris Middleton. Some of these are back-to-back related.
Mm-hmm.
Giannis is not listed, and I am skeptical. So so I'll let you take it from there. Giannis played 37 minutes last night, was incredible. These lines that we're seeing in the NBA in the last 2 weeks, I don't know if it's like the holidays and defenses are taking off for the holidays. They're on vacation. I don't know what's going on, but we're seeing just massive. I mean, 55, 10, and 7 like doesn't even like it doesn't even register these days. It's
I put a little tweet together. I mean, this is ridiculous, and I didn't even put Klay Thompson's 54 on there.
Yeah,
so I ran out of space. It's just nuts. Every night someone's going for 55. It's crazy.
It doesn't even matter. But I'm skeptical that Giannis, I'm skeptical that we go through the rest of the day without Giannis appearing on this injury report. What are your thoughts there? And obviously, with the information that we have currently, with no Drew, no Joe Ingles, no George Hill, how do you think the Bucks line up tonight?
Yeah, 100% watch out for that Giannis tag. Like we are not firing any Bucks unders today. Yeah, because just on top of what you said, like he got that probable tag yesterday. Probable tag is alarm bells going off when it comes to those guys. Yeah. So keep an eye out there. Obviously, if we are going to take them at their word here, Javon Carter definitely should benefit in a bigger way. Ingles, not a huge deal there. We'll probably see a little bit more Beauchamp. I think AJ Green's kind of earned minutes. We saw him pick up heavy minutes when they missed Drew Holiday and Hill. So he would benefit again. I expect him to pick up a pretty good chunk here. Not that he would be a play, but I think he'd be in the rotation again.
All right, let's move to Detroit. No Marvin Bagley. It sounds like no Marvin Bagley for a long time. We've seen Sadiq Bey slide into the starting lineup of late with Killian Hayes suspended. What's your read on how the Detroit rotation continues to evolve as they get Killian Hayes back into the rotation eventually? Is Hayes still one more suspension, or is he finally
he's
served?
Suspended today? I think this.
Yeah, one more. I think this is the last game that he's suspended. So, what's your read on how Detroit shakes out?
Should be the same. Not besides moving Bagley out. We saw Kevin Knox kind of go away and then kind of reappear. So I'd expect him to pick up some minutes there. And then they just play a little bit smaller. A little bit more Hamidou Diallo. Maybe see Rodney Magruder and those guys. But Kevin Knox should be kind of locked into the rotation. Maybe we see a little bit of Noel. Not 100% sure on that, but we'd probably give him a few minutes just to be safe. But really bad matchup for the front court guys. Golden State's interior defense has really been turning the corner. That was an area of strength for them last year. It was a big weak spot early in the season. So, pretty bad matchup for the front court guys. Possibly a Boyan spot and not a great Ivy spot. Dante DiVincenzo has been very good on ball defense.
Yeah, I think Hayes is actually back today. He's not listed on the injury report. and it was a 3-game suspension, and they've played 3 games since. So I think he's back actually. Because I was getting confused on that. I was like, did they play 2? Did they play 3? Because he's not on the injury report. But I think Killian being back, that should slide Bay back to the bench, right?
Yeah. That's my mistake then.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's move on to the Warriors. They're still shorthanded. No Kuminga, no Wiggins, no Weissman, no JaMychal Green, no Steph Curry. Front court issues, sort of, with all that depth. We saw Kevon Looney's minutes extend last game, in what ended up being an overtime thriller that, despite 2 overtimes, we could still not cash a Jordan Poole over. Very frustrating. But we saw Looney get to 32 minutes in those 2 overtimes, did not play the full overtime periods. We saw Draymond Green's minutes a little bit elevated in that game as well. What do you expect with all the absence of these front court pieces for Golden State tonight?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. We'll see, pretty good minutes out of Draymond. Draymond's been playing awesome, man. Just potential assists have been elite. His defense has been very good. Talked about that a second ago. Kevon Looney, higher minute ceiling. Steven Chendo's playing a lot right now. He's, like I mentioned, really their lone on-ball defender that they can truly trust here. So I'd expect his minutes to be strong. Talked a little bit about this midweek last week that Poole's ball handling was falling off, and really since I said that, it's completely turned around. He is kind of running away with the ball handling duties. The passing's not there, though. He's like 3rd or 4th in the team potential assist, but the scoring has been outrageous. I think he's like 5th in usage rate in his last 4 or 5 games. So pretty strong role. And then obviously Clay's 54 ball. I think he only had like 16, 17 catch and shoot shots. It wasn't a lot. Put the ball on the floor multiple times for almost half his shots. So very un-Clay-like way to get 54. But yeah, pretty thin rotation. Just and missing it in on-ball defense buckets and front court buckets. So those guys definitely benefit.
All right, let's move to some of the returns. A couple teams on back-to-backs today. We did get the Oklahoma City Thunder filing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was not listed on the injury report. I don't know if that means he's out. Excuse me. I don't know if that means he's in, because we've seen Thunder shenanigans this year. But I will say they were debating whether he would even travel for this game last night. That was what one of the beats tweeted. So I got to think him not being on the injury report is a good sign, unless they are just really like sticking their middle finger at the league and want to get fined. What are your thoughts on the Thunder injury report, which is just a bunch of out tags for Pokusevski, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Eugene Omiori, Chet Holmgren, of course, and Usman Jian.
Yeah, not buying that, not listed. As you mentioned, they didn't list him yesterday, and just all of a sudden gets ruled out. And I took CLVL again. I was like, oh, SGA, they should get smacked around. And Malcolm Brogdon said they didn't take him serious, basically, and they got completely waxed, 150. So that the Boston defensive stats are going to look really bad in like 5, 10, 20 game samples now. But they went real small. I believe Josh Giddey was their tallest starter yesterday, as they went with Kenrich as really their 5-man, and just a switch heavy scheme, which makes sense against the way that Boston has so much ball handling. It was pretty smart. And I mean, obviously it was smart. They blew them out, but very different matchup here. So, you're going up against Orlando. You don't need the on-ball defense as much. So I think I guess we take them for their word. They'll start their usual guys. I would expect Jalen Williams to get back in the starting lineup. He's been, he actually had a decent game yesterday. I won't say any G League.
He played well yesterday.
He played pretty well. Got a couple nice dimes for Stroke and Joe. Easiest over we've hit in a little bit. But so I think if there is funny business here, I think they would go to a bigger lineup, probably start Kenrich at the 4, and then Jay Will starting at the 5. But yeah, we'll take them at their word for now. But it's the first game of the day, so we should also have that information.
Yeah, if you're gonna bring up G League stuff on this show, at least bring up Scoot Henderson at this point. My God. Okay. All right, let's get to Royce O'Neal is back for Brooklyn tonight. Brooklyn, this might be the first time in the KD Kyrie era that there's almost nobody on the injury report for Brooklyn. They are fully operational at this point, and they are just rolling through teams, and they get the Bulls who have been giving up the big games to everybody these days. What's your read on having Royce back and how that impacts things? We saw Seth Curry slide in the starting lineup last game.
Yeah, Jacques Vaughn said after the last game that he was just kind of a minor bug, and they wanted to hold him out. So he should be back, should be full, should be picking up the Zach LaVine matchup on the other side. And I mean, the Nets offense is insane. Since in their last 8 games, I think they're first or like if we look at like shot chart, shot location stuff, they're first in at rim, short range, mid range shots, long range, mid range shots, above the break threes, and all threes. They're like literally first in everything. This team is just completely rolling. Jump shooting team too. The Bulls give up a lot of jump shooting stuff as well. So it's a pretty good spot. I think Patrick Williams is going to really struggle with Durant. And I mentioned about the Kyrie stuff earlier too.
And then Sacramento is on a back-to-back. They have not filed yet, but we should just note that Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter were both questionable yesterday. They get a win by the skin of their teeth last night in Utah with what was so close. What was a tenth of a second away from being one of the most incredible game-winning shots, because Markkanen was behind the three-point line. In an incredible pass from Jared Vanderbilt, who was my flag plant last night, who had minutes cut down in the fourth. That was very frustrating. But Sacramento had these guys questionable last night, so they could pop up on the injury report again today.
Yeah, Kevin Huerter, he missed a back-to-back set 2 back-to-back sets ago. He played in the last one. So, yeah, keep an eye out on that one.
It's a revenge game, though, for Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, Red Velvet revenge. So, yeah, that's something to watch. But, yeah, an interesting spot. Trae Young, my cover boy for matchups today. He's gonna take it to De'Aaron Fox. We saw Keegan Murray guard DeJounte Murray in the last game for a Murray on Murray matchup that was limiting DeJounte. DeJounte kind of had a rough time with the size on Keegan. So really big Trae spot, regardless of the injuries on the other side.
37 minutes for Keegan Murray last night. They went starters heavy last night on the front end of a back-to-back. Will be interesting to see if there's some ill effects today on the second end. Okay, that'll do it for us. As always, support the people who are supporting us. This show is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts for money running ish and many formats of NFL contests still running for huge prizes. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers can use our tool to compare ETR projections to their game. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, use promo code ETR for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. It's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. All right, myself and Gary Hartman will be behind the paywall today at 5 o'clock Eastern. Make sure to join us there. If you are not a subscriber to Establish the Run because you're uninterested in giving us your hard-earned dollars, we ask for your hard-earned clicks. You can subscribe to this YouTube page, get notifications whenever we go live. You can also smash that like button and help circulate our content within the algorithm. As we say, feed the algorithm, help us feed our families, and we'll help you feed yourselves in the DFS and prop streets. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.